And welcome to the public. I'd like to remind you all that this meeting is live on the Council's YouTube channel. Before we move into this afternoon's proceedings, there are a few housekeeping matters that I'd like to bring to members' attention. One, I'd like to remind members and officers to stand when they are speaking in the chamber. Two, can I also please remind members that other than the proposer of a motion, any speeches must be limited to 3 minutes and directed to the item or question under discussion. 3, please may I remind members, officers, including the press and public, that are in attendance today, that all mobile phones must be placed in silent mode and no calls should be made or received in the chamber during the meeting. Point 4, I'd also like to encourage all members who are asking questions that I direct them through the chair. 5, members may be aware that there is an adverse weather warning in place today. I would therefore aim to finish the meeting by 5 p.m. in order to help those councillors who have long journeys get home safely. 6, also I'm going to use my discretion and move agenda item 13 to after agenda item 11 and then take agenda item 12 after agenda item 13. Finally, councillors, I would like to ask your indulgence, with your indulgence, I'd like to address the issue of the 10-minute time limit I suggested last council on questions and answers on any one item. Thank you to all those members who have given helpful feedback on the issue. As you know, the Chair must balance the demands of members wanting to speak against the need to manage the good and timely conduct of the business of the Council. On occasion, this inevitably means weighing up the time devoted to items against the need to go through the business in an orderly and timely fashion. On reflection and following feedback from colleagues, I will certainly be adopting a more flexible approach. I would ask for the support of all members in assisting me in making the arrangements work in a way which facilitates appropriate debate and challenge, while ensuring at the same time the business is conducted in a businesslike and constructive fashion. I will set out how I propose approaching managing business at the council meeting. I propose calling members in order while trying to reflect political balance with preference to those who have not previously spoken. I will be asking participants to avoid repetitive questions, and I encourage members to make fresh points, as this will ensure everyone who wants to speak is able to do so, and will ask members not to take offence if I have to bring them back to the issue in hand. I'll be asking members to keep to the point in both questions and answers. I would ask as a guideline for all contributors to keep to 2 minutes so far as possible. I will bring contributors back to the point if they stray off the issue. I remain alert to the need to manage the business of the meeting, and I will ensure that the questions do not go on so long that they cease to shed further light on the issues. The nights are long and drawing early, as I've already said, and many of you have a considerable distance to travel, so I believe it's only right I treat your time with respect. I also have asked the Director of Law and Corporate Governance to oversee a review with members of the effectiveness of arrangements before the end of the municipal year. Thank you, members. Agenda item 1 is apologies for absence. I understand we've received apologies for absence from Councillors Fairless Aitken, Patterson, Eccles-Shelvin, Bourne, Stewart, Oliver and Dunbar. Do I have any more from the floor? No, I don't think I do. Thank you very much for that. Minutes. The next item is the minutes of the meeting of County Council held on 6th of September 2023, as circulated to be confirmed as a true record. See pages 1 to 12. Can we confirm these minutes as a true record? Can I have a proposer, please? Proposed by Councillor Wearmouth. Can I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Councillor Watson. Thank you very much. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 3, disclosure of members' interests. Does any member have any interest to declare that have not already been declared to the monitoring officer before this meeting? I can't see anything, so I shall carry on. Item 4 is announcements by the chair, leader or head of paid services. I have 3 announcements. The first is about this year's Service of Remembrance. It's being held at County Hall on Friday the 10th of November. If any member wishes to bring a wreath to lay there, will be a briefing in the restaurant at 10:30 and the service will commence at 10:50 a.m. Refreshments will be available after the service outside of the restaurant, and members are asked to confirm attendance to Susan Taylor. I'd also like to announce that the MOD Employer Recognition Scheme Gold Award revalidation has been approved, and Northumberland County Council now holds this for a further 5 years. This represents exemplary support provided to our armed forces community. Initial request for the council to support a march is planned for 204 Battery, Kingston Park, 101 Regiment on the 27th and 28th of January 2024. The intention is marching troops will leave Kingston Park on Saturday the 27th and arrive in Alnwick on Sunday the 28th. The march will come to a halt at Alnwick Castle. The reason for this march and route is that the 1st Battalion Tyneside Scottish marched from Newcastle to Alnwick on 29th and 30th of January 1915 to begin their military training during World War I. A request will be made by the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers for a St George's Day march through Ashington on 20th of April 2024, which will also mark the 350th anniversary of when the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers was first formed in Northumberland. I'll also just want to mention we had a Macmillan Coffee morning this morning, which made £878, and you can still contribute to that after the meeting. Finally, it's my sad duty to announce the death of former County Councillor Mike Stott, who sadly recently passed away. Mike represented the Blythe Valley Kitty Brewster Ward from 1981 to 1985 and was chair of the Amenities Committee for all that time. I would like to invite Council to join me in observing a minute's silence in memory of former Councillor Stott. Thank you, members. I will now pass over to the leader for an update on devolution.
Thank you, colleagues. Just to let you know that next week our Cabinet meeting will be discussing the kind of final stage in moving towards NEMCA, the LA7 North East Mayoral Combined Authority. All the councils that are involved in this either have had or will have very closely the same time as ours, exactly the same decision-making paper. And once we do that, we will then proceed forward with this potentially incredibly important development. I can tell you that relations between the leaders remains cordial and respectful, and I'm quite sure that will continue as we work through the coming months and when we go past May. And look forward to seeing whoever is chosen as the mayor to leading the new authority with great passion and care. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5 is public questions. We've received no questions from the public. Item 6 is questions. Now we move on to the questions. We have 8 questions submitted. I'd like to remind members we have 20 minutes allocated for this session, and I would like to get through as many questions as possible within the allocated time. So please stick to asking the question, including if you're going to ask a supplementary question. If we can't get through the questions in the allotted time, then written responses will be given. Can I go to question 1, which is Councillor Hill to the leader?
Thank you, Chair. Scottish Power's net profit last year was £487 million, which must bring great joy to their shareholders. Having less fun are the residents in my ward and in the area crossing between myself and Councillor Hunter's ward, who've recently been walking home nervously in the dark, as once again Scottish Power are taking weeks, sometimes many months, to fix faults impacting street lighting. Do you think this is acceptable, and what is this authority going to do about it?
Thank you for your question. The answer is this is a cable fault. It's not the fault of the light. Once the council were asked to look at it, we inspected the lamp and the standards and found that it was an underground cable fault. So we contacted Scottish Power and asked them to deal with that because it was their responsibility. Under the provisions, these privatised companies are able to fix these kind of things within a certain set length of time. And I can tell you that is 20 working days. And they did fix this within that time scale. I can understand why it was very annoying. And we do everything we can to encourage the privatised companies to think about the residents who are affected when a light goes out.
Supplementary, Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. In light of the fact that last year in Highcliffe there was a fault that Scottish Power took over a year to fix, and in light of the fact that Renfrewshire Council have written to the Chief Executive of Scottish Power quite rightly saying that given the profits that they make, that these delays and the lack of urgency is unacceptable, would you write to the Chief Executive of Scottish Power and say, and we're not even getting onto the service about domestic issues, but these delays and lack of urgency are unacceptable? Because I know of at least 3 or 4 examples of unacceptable delays.
Well, thank you for that supplementary. I think what I would say is I'll need to consider I think I'll need to consider how many similar issues we've had, the timescales involved, and the utility company that was responsible. If there is a common thread there, then of course I will take that up with whichever utility company that is. We do try and work with people as much as we can on good terms, but I will look at that, and if appropriate, I will write, yes.
Question to Councillor Murphy to myself.
Would the leader agree with me that openness and accountability are critical components of a well-run local authority, excuse me, and that in order to achieve these, a full council meeting should not be restricted by arbitrary and artificial time constraints which bear no relation to the importance of the issue being discussed, nor of the interests of members who wish to contribute to the debate and effectively disenfranchise backbench councillors? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. You might have heard part of my response when you was coming in, so you might have missed the beginning of it. So I suggest you watch the video later for the first bit of it, but I think you probably got the gist anyway. I hope in a positive spirit, in the course of my introductory remarks to all councillors at this meeting, that I responded to that. We continue to work to make this a good council and to make it a productive meeting, and I will carry on doing that, and I do hope the issue is now resolved. Supplementary. Question 3 from Councillor Darwin to Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. It was reported to members earlier this year that there had been a steep rise in domestic violence. Do Northumberland Adult Social Care work closely with Northumbria Police when it comes to tackling domestic violence and issues of safeguarding? Also, what steps are put in place, if any, to ensure cases of domestic violence which are reported to Northumbria Police are also reported to Northumberland Adult Social Care to ensure that Northumberland County Council can best support victims of domestic violence in such uncertain, worrying and devastating times?
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Councillor Darwin, for raising this important issue. All incidents of domestic violence are submitted by the police as an adult concern notification into a team based at Foundry House, Bedlington. The team is referred to as the MASH, and MASH stands for Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub. The team is subdivided into 2 parts, and if children are involved, the concern will go to the children's MASH, and if no children are involved, it will go into the adults' MASH. Northumbria Police are a key partner into this MASH and are physically located in the building in Bedlington along with council staff. An independent domestic violence advisor also works within the MASH team and can pick up incidents of real concern and discuss referrals to seek refuge quickly. Northumbria Police are also core members of the Northumberland Children and Adults Safeguarding Partnership Board, which will review occurrences and patterns in domestic violence from a more strategic level.
Supplementary, Councillor Darwin.
Yes, please, Chair. It is unfortunate that I have been a victim of domestic violence just earlier last year. So I would like members to know more about this issue, and that can affect any one of us at any given time. Can I ask to meet with the Head of Social Care or those who are best placed to help with this matter going forward, to make positive changes to residents of Northumberland and improve where possible the shared information between the police and the police services? I have an ongoing investigation with Northumbria Police where I've had to raise a complaint on my behalf in their handling of my case. So I would like to meet with their members to discuss that more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Darwin. This is actually Councillor Patterson's portfolio. She's not here today, under caring for adults. So I will pass what you've just said on to her and ask her to take it forward. I'd also advise members who don't know to take some, to look into the one-call centre we have in Bedlington. I think you probably all know the one-call number to go to for social care. But the building at Bedlington is really interesting, and based there are the police and a domestic violence advisor, as well as social workers. So it might be a nice idea to have a look at that as well. And I'll ask Councillor Patterson if she could arrange it for you. Okay, thank you.
Question 4 is from Councillor Hunter to the leader. Councillor Hunter.
Thank you, Chair. I've been contacted by a few residents asking about the 50-plus question survey they have recently received in the post from Lake Market Research from Kent on behalf of Northumberland County Council. The residents who have contacted me have all stated they looked at the number of questions and, due to the length of the survey, placed the paperwork in the bin. Please can the leader advise me who authorised the survey? What was the purpose of the survey? Will the results of the survey influence future budget expenditure? What is the total cost so far to Northumberland County Council for undertaking the survey? And when will elected members receive feedback from the survey?
Leader.
Thank you very much. I'm going to answer your question one by one. So the first one, the survey was authorised by me, the Chief Executive and the Director of Strategy and Communications. Question 2, what is the purpose? The purpose is to gauge public opinion, to find out what people think are the really important things that we do and how much they either appreciate them or don't, where they think we're doing things well and where they think we could do things better, and so on. Will it influence spending? Yes, it will. It will influence the budget process this year and for the next following one, because it's obviously very important that we do reflect what people tell us. The cost is around 25,000, which is actually on the modest scale for a survey of this size. We can't do it ourselves because we just don't have the resources able to do that. But we went through the normal process of finding a supply to do this for us. And this is what we've got to. And yes, there will be feedback to members. Now, I also want to say this. It's actually really difficult because this time in February last year, you were all shouting at me because you're saying we don't talk to people enough. And the budget, councillor over there, the leader of the opposition, saying, "Oh, you don't listen to me. This is no good. Your public consultation is a load of rubbish. You're hopeless." So on the one hand, we're told we don't consult enough. And then on the other hand, when we are doing that, we are challenged. And you're quite right to challenge, and I'm glad you have, because it is important that we do get out and about and listen to what people are saying. So this is one method. Another method is me going up to Berwick and facing a hostile audience, planted, planted. No, a challenging audience, let me say. But it was quite an interesting meeting to discuss the County Council, just the same as we've had a town and parish council conference recently, and it was so successful, something like around 80 people there, that I've said we will do that twice a year instead of once a year. That is the same consultation we're talking about. When I became leader, I asked all cabinet members to go to at least one parish or town council to meet members of those parish and town councils and to understand better the issues of those, and that happened. So we do spend a significant amount of time talking to people, but most importantly of all, we hear what people say. And that is built into everything we do. And this latest survey will allow us to be clear on one or two things that we need to be absolutely crystal clear on. What I would say is I'm terribly disappointed that you have got one or two residents that won't fill it in, because Berwick's an interesting case. Berwick is a place that has had significant infrastructure spending on it since the Conservatives came to power. And I'll just give you one figure. And this is one figure. Between 2011 and 2017, when Labour were in charge, and a little bit of Lib Dems as well, in Berwick, this total spend was 11.7 million. Under the Conservatives, since 2017, 31.2 million. And once all the work that's going on now is completed, it'll be closer to 50 million. So I hope people in Berwick like what they're getting. They like the leisure centre, they like the new maltings, and all the other things that they will get over the next couple of years. And I know that Berwick members will forcibly say, you're getting a good deal out of this county council. Look at all the money that's been spent here.
So
thank you.
So fill the
Thank
form
you.
in.
He was getting very close. He was getting very close to your 5 minutes there, Leader.
Oh, right.
So,
Sorry.
supplementary, Councillor Hunter.
Yeah, just a quick one. In future, when these surveys go out, can we just have an email to say, so that we can actually say to residents what the better background to it and try and encourage them to fill it in?
Yeah, I'm very sorry that didn't happen. We should have done that, and we will make sure we do it next time.
Question 5 is Councillor Dale to Councillor Riddle. Councillor Dale.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I did actually put this question in before we had the last storms over this weekend. As a result of climate change, we're seeing more regular storms throughout the country, causing flooding and trees falling in particular. What extra resources is this council providing for our workforce to help them with this extra workload?
Councillor Riddle.
Thank you, Councillor Dale, for the question. This council has detailed action plans for responding to events which pose significant risk to any of our communities, such as flooding during the recent storm Babette, and we are well prepared with other agencies to react to them. When responding to severe weather events such as Storm Babette and the imminent Storm Kieran, the priority is to ensure the safety and well-being of our communities. As a result, staff are redeployed from other duties to focus all our resources and efforts where they are most needed. We also draw in additional resources on top of our in-house teams as required. For example, tree surgeons when we had lots of fallen trees. And also for removing any trees that are identified to us as being dangerous. You know, we do recognise, and I think we all accept, you know, this time we've got fourth storm in the season already imminently. We recognise that the frequency and severity of the storms is increasing, and we will take this into account with our refreshed Climate Change Action Plan 24-26.
Supplementary, Councillor Dale.
Can I just say, first of all, thank you, and I'd like to thank all the workforce for all the work they've done over this weekend, and I welcome Councillor Riddle's response. I think what I would like to go back to is that I think if we can remember since LGR, the amount of service cuts that have occurred to this workforce has been quite considerable. For instance, in 2008, Tynedale had 6 gully cleaners. They also had 2 road sweepers. Now we have 1 gully cleaner, and it covers an enormous area, and the gullies are only cleaned once every 2 years. And this was discussed during a parish council, county council meeting, which we have in our local area. And what I would like to see is, and this is no political state, is actually for us to understand what we're going to deal with. And
Councillor Dale, I've been
I'm
asked
just going-
if you can get to the question,
yes,
please.
Absolutely. Can we, instead of being reactive, can we be proactive? Because I feel that the gullies could have been cleaned. I've been talking about getting gullies cleaned for a long, long time. If they'd been cleaned, we wouldn't have had the flooding we've had. So that is one proactive thing. Secondly, could we have the ditches
I've been
cleaned?
told your minute's up to answer your question.
All right, I'll ask you.
So I think
Could we have a- could we
Councillor
have a
Riddle's got the
working
gist.
Could we-
Councillor Riddle, could you answer through the chair, please?
Thank you, Councillor Dale. I would like to remind you that actually we have 4 new gully suckers that were purchased in 2022. The old gully suckers that we had were as much off the road as on the run, so to speak. These ones are state-of-the-art. They're very efficient machines. What we will look at is if we are using them to their maximum potential, we will investigate that. As far as the frequency of gully cleansing goes, as you know, we've got the new Fix My Streets app, and we also have lots of back office data. We are collecting that, and we are actually assimilating all that data of which gullies are the problem gullies, etc., and we are going to target the resources in a very efficient manner. So I am looking forward to things improving. We are doing, I believe, the best we can at the moment, but there's always room to learn, and that is what we will do with all this data that we are collecting.
Okay, question 6, Councillor Nisbet to Councillor Horncastle.
Can the council confirm how many void council houses exist in Blythe, how long they have been empty, and how many people are currently on the council waiting list?
Councillor Horncastle.
Thank you, Councillor Nisbet. The answer to that is...
It's on, but it doesn't seem to be making much noise.
Is it now?
Bit better.
The County Council have 3,646 units in Blythe, Coupon and Newsham. In October 2023, there were 77 void properties in Blythe. The average void period is 99 days, lower than the county average of 107 days. There are also 60 voids in Blythe awaiting demolition or structural works and full refurbishment. While there is no longer a council house waiting list as such, we currently have 13,990 active home finder applications, and just over 8,600 of these are in Band 3, which means they have no assessed immediate housing need. The delay in reletting the 77 properties is caused by a combination of demand and increased levels of work required to bring ageing stock up to modern standards before they are let. To give context for these figures, the void figure for lettable council properties in Blythe, Coupon and Newsham is 2.1%, the county average is 1.8%, and the national average is higher at 2.2%. The void rate for all housing stock is 2.7% in the UK. On the 14th of November, we are holding a policy conference on affordable and social housing. This will be an opportunity to influence priorities and understand how members can better support residents who may be experiencing housing concerns.
Okay, supplementary, Councillor Nisbet.
Thanks for that. Could I get the same for Cramington, and you can sort of send that by written letter, if you don't mind.
Certainly.
Thank you.
For Cramlington.
Sorry? For Cramington.
Okay,
Thank
no
you.
problem.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm getting close to 20 minutes, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my discretion to allow us to finish this session, but can I just ask members asking and answering to use their brevity in those, please? Question 7 is from Councillor Dickinson to the Leader.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Can the Leader confirm if Advance Northumberland's Managing Director has resigned, and if so, does he find it appropriate that the Leader of the Opposition, or any other councillor for that matter, finds out on the grapevine rather than being respectfully communicated with by the Council's wholly owned company?
Am I answering? I'm going to answer this one. Right. Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. I remind all members Advance is an independent arm's-length company. In the first instance, it is for the Managing Director and the company to determine how best to communicate these issues. In general, in line with good practice, the Council does not disseminate more widely than is strictly necessary details of any resignation. Steps are being taken to ensure that the appropriate response to this resignation is taken by the Council in conjunction with the company. This will, of course, follow the proper process.
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman. Some members are becoming increasingly frustrated with members of staff in the council who are moving on, whether it's through retirement or another job, which relates to casework, which can make it frustrating for staff and residents. So is there a way that we can communicate better about this type of thing so that members find out when somebody they've been working with for a period of time has actually left the authority before having to start with somebody new and go through it all again?
I think we... Would you like to answer, Leader?
I'd be delighted to answer that.
Thanks,
I'm not really sure about the level of people leaving that you're describing. I think the flow of people coming and going now compared to a couple of years ago is minuscule. What I would say is that you're always able to get in touch with the Chief Executive, and I believe you get regular meetings with her, and you will also recall that we have regular group leaders meetings. Sadly, you weren't there last week, but I know you were ill. But we have regular group meetings. That's the place to raise these matters, really. So far as casework is concerned, again, I would suggest that if you can't get the response from a member of staff, and I'm really racking my brains to try and think who that might be, but if you are having problems, please come to us and we will answer those.
Thank you. Question 8 is from Councillor Taylor to the Leader. Councillor Taylor.
As you are aware, I voted against the overall budget for the last 2 years. And so as we go into this year's budget setting period, can you confirm to the council taxpayers of Bedlington that they will see some serious investment in the town? Personally, I'm hoping that we don't just have to rely on the 3 million of Borderlands funding or to take our begging bowls out for some extra funding that's linked to this. And for this, we've got to jump through hoops. And most of this funding is not related to the projects that we're asking for. Thank you.
Leader.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to pay tribute to you, to Councillor Wallace, to Vilchak, and also to Councillor Robinson for being such passionate and excellent members for Bedlington. You have raised the issue with me regularly. We have met regularly. And because of that, we have tried our very best to try and move forward with as much as we can. But I have to be a little bit firm about how much money is actually being spent in Bedlington and what's actually happening. And it may be disappointing, but it's basically where we are. So a few things are, for example, we've got cash investment going into Gallagher Park soon around car parking and other things. We went to Dean Park 2 days ago and found that there were 12 issues that need addressing, and they are being addressed. Most importantly, I think that's an area where Councillor Vilchak has very, very sensibly raised the possibility of creating more of a heritage lottery-funded type scheme there to reflect the incredibly interesting history and culture around what was there hundreds of years ago. We've got a new play zone, which is improving the play and sports facilities, a new train station at Bedlington costing over 20 million, new cycling and walking routes throughout the town and around the town, this new investment at one of the best schools in the county, £2 million about to be spent at Bennett Biscop, The new place plan, which is around 3 million, but it could be that we may be able to support that as well if a project comes up. That's only one of 7 towns, only 7 in Northumberland that are getting that money. More importantly, there are fresh ideas for Gallagher Park, led by Councillor Horncastle, which will include a new investment in a QE2 memorial, nature trails, new investment at Plessy Woods with the boulder climbing frame and also improvements to the food and drink offer. And although I appreciate this beautiful new leisure centre in Morpeth that is in Bedlington, it is a 9-minute drive. There is a very regular bus service between Bedlington and Morpeth, as you know, and thanks to the Conservative government's reduction on fees and taking bus fares, that we can get there and back very cheaply. So, in conclusion, I would say that we would like to do more, and we will be doing more, and it's really just a question of being patient. And I understand the patience that's been showed by Bedlington members for many, many years, but we are getting there. And I would just, again, without boring everyone to death, I would just like to give you the spending that took place when Labour and Liberal Democrats were in charge. No, I insist, please. Between 2011 and 2017, 11.6 million. When the Conservatives came in 2017 up to 22-23, 13.1 million. And if we add everything else that's in train to happen, that'll get closer to 48 million pounds compared to 11 million pounds that Labour spent there. So I hope that's at least cast a little bit of a bigger picture of the fact we do take Bedlington seriously. And I do applaud the work that you have all done, and we will work together, I promise you, to keep the momentum going for the sake of Bedlington and the residents.
Supplementary, Councillor Taylor.
Just a couple of things. Thank you for the list. There weren't things that people asked for in Bedlington when we went out. I'll be interested to know how much NCC money is within that amount that you've quoted. And just a couple of points. The car park at Gallagher Park, I was asked to contribute from my small schemes, which I was happy to do towards that, and I think other councillors have done that as well to make that happen. And the cheap bus fares end in December. So, unfortunately, it's advertised quite everywhere that it's the end of December that the bus finishes. So, but it would be nice if we could have, and if you could look at this, because I totally accept we are not going to get a leisure centre in Bedlington, but can we then have transport for the people who live in Bedlington who are being forced to travel out of Bedlington for leisure? Not everybody has a car. Not everybody's got the money to pay for the bus fare. So can we have subsidised travel for people that live in Bedlington that have got to travel out? That would be great. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that supplementary. Something we can certainly look at. There's a member at the back of the room there, right at the back, who we welcome and say good morning, good afternoon to. He represents an area that is also looking for subsidised travel to a leisure centre. It is an issue that we obviously want to look at and talk about. But if there is a bus service that's every hour, I think there's something like 15, 16 buses a day, something like that, for the fare of what it is, then, you know, it'd be difficult for us to subsidise that anymore. But I hear what you say, and in the meantime, I would really keep that offer open to keep talking with the four of you, and we will get there.
Okay, I think we're done, Councillor Taylor. Right. Thank you for that. We did go over the 20 minutes, but we didn't have a public question time, so I'm quite happy with that. I'll carry on with the agenda. We now move on to item 7 on the agenda, which is the annual Cabinet Member report for the Cabinet Member for looking after our environment. We have 2 Cabinet Member reports this afternoon, and it's useful to remind members that these annual reports provide a good opportunity for Council to look back over the past year of each portfolio, reflecting on what has been achieved and key challenges as well as priorities looking forward. It's also worth pointing out that the portfolio reports are standard in many councils across the country, So this format is considered good practice, and these reports are about openness and accountability in the work in each of our portfolios. I'd like to invite Councillor Horncastle to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you for this opportunity to introduce my portfolio report to the Council. This report is mostly about looking back over the past year or so, but it is important to recognise the achievements of the last year because the officers have put so much work into everything we have done together, and I think we as a Council should express our gratitude to them for their professionalism and hard work. And on that point, I'd like to say any cabinet member or even a chair of a committee could not actually carry out their role without the wonderful support and expertise we get from our officers. And the officers that we are dealing with in the 30 years I've been a councillor is the best group of people I've ever come across. So on with the report. I am not going to read the report out. It's there, you've had it a week, so I'm not... So, this report sets out some really great things that benefit communities right across the county. So just a brief overview of it. There's four main things that we've highlighted in here. Firstly, I want to highlight the Council's new environmental policy statement agreed by the Cabinet last month. The leaders mentioned that earlier. The policy statement shows a high priority given by the Council to environmental matters such as climate change, nature recovery and biodiversity, heat and renewable energy, sustainable waste management, travel and transport, water quality, parks and green spaces and safeguarding public health. I think this is a really good piece of work because it ties together all the parts of our commitment to maintain, protect and enhance our environment for future generations. And whether you're passionate about climate change or whether you just want to enjoy nice open spaces, there is something here for everyone to get involved. Secondly, I want to highlight the fantastic work the housing team have done, not just being a landlord, collecting the rent and maintaining the stock, but actually caring about our tenants. The welfare support team have worked with tenants and brought in an extra £572,000 of income to our most vulnerable tenants through income and benefits. And the Council also introduced a hardship fund of £350,000 to help tenants with rent increases and the cost of living increase. Officers secured £65,000 in grant funding for new vulnerable tenants working with Northumberland communities together to source grants, food parcels, white goods and furniture. And there's much more in the actual report. Thirdly, I am proud the Council continues to look after our historic environment. For example, working in partnership to deliver the Hexham High Street Action Zone with £4.3 million of funding to improve the local economy through heritage-led regeneration and public realm improvements. We have also provided conservation support and advice to major council and other strategic initiatives, including Union Chain Bridge, Berwick Maltons, Northumberland Line, Berwick Infirmary and the Hexham Shambles. And the fourth and last thing I want to highlight is the excellent work of our parks and open spaces. So, excuse me. I was delighted this year when 12 of Northumberland parks were awarded the Green Flag Awards, an increase from 11 last year. This award recognises them as some of the very best in the country, and we're going to build on that success with further enhancements. So that's just 4 examples of great work from the staff in this portfolio. Chair, I could go on with many more examples, but it's all there in the report, and I think you've probably heard enough from me, and I'm sure members want to perhaps make comments or ask questions. Thank you.
Right. First hand I've seen is from Councillor Daly. Councillor Daly, could you ask a question?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Horncastle, for the report. There's quite a lot of good stuff in here, so well done on that, as you've referenced to the officer team behind it. But you may recall when I was Deputy Leader that one of the things that I worked on, Councillor Sanderson mentioned this, was about our investment in school stock. and one of them was the Duchess High School, sorry, the Queen Elizabeth High School in Hexham. When I was chairing the planning coordinating group for that site, there was always something that was going to be done to the vacant Hexham Middle School site. And I'm just wondering, reading this report, whether you've missed a bit of a trick. Because could that something to be done with that site be real affordable housing? So, sorry to put you on the spot, but I thought I'd ask.
So Councillor Daly's picked on something that isn't even in the report. But I can imagine that you were heavily involved in what happened in Hexham 3 or 4 years ago, so you obviously know about the site. Right, it's probably not in the report because when a school closes, there's an awful lot that happens behind the scenes that's not done in public. The school has got to be sort of like delisted as an education facility. You've got to have certain permissions from the government departments. That obviously dealing with any sort of government department isn't very quick. And probably even harder is to deal with Sport England because the Hexham Middle School site had playing fields. So you've got to prove to Sports England that we haven't lost those sporting facilities and they're catered for elsewhere. So all that had to be done. And then after that, we actually, well, all this was happening in this year we're talking about. We're actually up and running now, because we're soon hopefully going to go public about this, that we've actually, at the next step now, we've commissioned some specialist architects who are going to, I've actually got some notes because I was at a meeting the other night in Hexham with the Hexham Community-Led Housing. So, yes, what these architects are going to do, they're come up with a master plan, right? It's a huge site. There's a few local councillors in this room, Councillor Hutchinson, Councillor Cesspit, Councillor Kennedy down here. This site is almost as big as the Seal Park in Hexham. It's huge, and it feeds right down to the Marks and Spencer's car park, more or less in the centre of Hexham. So come up with the master plan. We're shortly going to go out to consultation with stakeholders, and then consultation with the public. Now, I've mentioned the meeting I was at the other night in Hexham with a community-led housing group. There was 40 people there, and it was really good to know that they were just thinking along exactly the same lines as me. We are very short of affordable housing in the west and the north, especially along the Tyne Valley and in the Hexham area. There's been very little affordable housing built in Hexham. One of the problems we've got in Hexham is that the sites have been bought up by other organisations like Carthy and Stone, for example, to do what we wouldn't call affordable housing, but housing for more older people. That doesn't free up any housing, the sort of housing we want. This house is in our ownership.
Are we getting to a conclusion now?
It's early days, but getting back to what you're saying, it's early days, but I am going to do my level best to squeeze every bit of affordable housing out of that site that I possibly can.
Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. My question is in the report, and it's on page 25, and it's section 511. I think anyone who's been able to purchase one of the 152 affordable homes built this past year will be very grateful for that. But it's a long way short of the 1,579 that were approved. Long way short. But it's not just that. If you look at page 65, Councillor Horncastle, where it's the... I'll just get there myself. On item number 7, for thriving places and culture, we actually quote the target was 374. So 152 being built is a long way short of 374. And that's why the KPI is identified in red. But it's identified in red at 122, which is 30 less than what's stated in your report. I would like some clarification on why there's a difference. One approved by the Deputy Leader and one by you. I'm sure there's a very satisfactory answer, but the biggest question is, why are we not hitting our target of 374 affordable homes when there was a waiting list, as described before, of people waiting for these homes? Thank you.
Councillor Horncastle, I think you're going to answer this, but I think Councillor Wearmouth may be able to prove clarity on one issue as well. But over to you.
Thank you, Chair. With your indulgence, there's a difference because it's a different time period, Councillor. So this is a report that's up to date. The performance report that you're referring to is over the financial year ending in April 23.
Okay. Do you want further answer there, Councillor?
So, getting back to the question of affordable housing. If you were party to our cabinet meetings, the SLT meetings, you would know that I drive my colleagues absolutely crazy, going on every single chance I get about affordable housing. It's something very close to my heart because I live in an area where we haven't got any affordable housing at all. You talk about the numbers in the southeast. Yes, you've got big numbers in the southeast, but you've also got huge numbers of affordable houses. We haven't got any. We haven't got any in our areas, and because of certain reasons and national planning laws and all sorts of planning restrictions here and there, ONB's green issues, it's extremely difficult to find sites to build affordable housing. So I can assure you the figures that I'm not very happy with, and I try all the time to improve those figures, and I'm doing everything I possibly can. But what is important is that it was mentioned earlier that we're having a meeting in this chamber soon, a housing seminar, summit. It's not just down to just officers and me at this council. All you 67 councillors here, you know your areas better. There's people, there's organisations like Carbon and Benicia are cash rich, but the site poor. If you can find any sites in your area, you know, it's all up to all of us to bring forward affordable housing, whether it's generated through our large plan applications or work with our colleagues, or what we've done recently. We bought houses in Alnwick, new houses. We've bought houses in Long Framlington. We're soon to do a large scheme in Amble. We are doing our level best, but I can assure you, I and my officers are doing our best.
Okay. I've got next four questioners are Councillor Hill, Councillor Dickinson, Councillor Morford and Councillor Hunter. With the questions we've had before, that's been quite a good political balance, I feel. And I'll go to Councillor Hill for the next question.
Thank you, Chair. A brief question on this one. I noticed on page 27, I think it's page 27, you refer to cemeteries, and we had the badger problem in Tweedmouth and so on. It came up recently on LAC, and it's something that I've been conscious of for some time. There are a range of issues regarding the management of our cemeteries in the county, about maintenance, about the future, and there's a lot of sensitivities around this, and also the provision of crematoriums. There's shortage in my area of them. So I was just wondering, do we have a cemetery strategy and plan? And if so, when was the last time it was refreshed, and are we due a refresh?
I've got to be honest, I can't answer that question, but I shall get the answer to it. On the subject of crematoria, we have got our crematoriums at Blythe. It has lost business, so to speak, to the new one at Felton. The figures don't stack up to have another one of ours built anywhere, whether in the north or in the west. It just wouldn't work. And there's also, unfortunately, a possibility of another private one may come forward close to Arcot Hall, which would have even a bigger effect on us. But the question about any strategy we've got, I'll get that sent out to you as quick as possible.
Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Horncastle. This portfolio definitely touches probably every member in here at some point, and we, the Labour Group, would like to extend our thanks to the teams on the ground who support local members with, on-the-ground issues. A couple of things from us. One, personally for me, in relation to the cemetery in Cheverton, it is one of the highest fee-paying cemeteries which has a very big flooding problem. It's gone on for a long period of time and we've had a whole range of potential solutions, but no solution actually achieved. So I wonder if you might come out and meet me there and we can have a discussion about that. I know it's not a very pleasant place, but I can take you for a coffee afterwards. In addition to that, we on page 28, again referencing housing, I'm sure the leader and others will remember that we used to have, and your comments just kind of shared a similar type of thought, which was around the 5-year strategy and the refresh of the housing delivery strategy. One of the things for us as a Labour group, as you'd expect, is local authority housing, council housing being provided. Affordable housing has been top of your agenda and you have achieved a lot within that time, but there are a significant amount of people who still need council properties. So I wonder if you could reflect on that and include us in potentially a cross-party group on the strategy, away from what you can achieve in a policy forum, because there's a lot more in-depth discussion, like you said, from members who know those areas and know the needs of certain areas, and the Housing Working Group used to be a good forum for that, so I don't know if something like that or another committee could be tagged on. But we very much welcome the report, and like I say, thank you to the staff who support our members, support the residents, but very much would like to see some local authority housing and some inclusion in what will be a strategy that spans past this administration. So it's important that we have input. Thank you.
I understand that, Councillor Dickens. Could I just quickly say, if I move to the next question, over the past 3 or 4 years, excuse me, we've had an extra, I don't know if burden's the right word, but we've been we've had an influx of Afghanis, Ukrainians, and what was your thought? Syrians, of course, Syrians. And this authority was one of the authorities that took these people in. 2/3 of authorities in this country didn't. We opened our doors to them, we opened our county to them, and our housing officers and the other teams that link into that, they've done their level best to make these people feel welcome and at home. So that, you can't ignore the fact that that has been another sort of like burden on our housing figures. We have had to house these people, so please don't forget what we've done. Many, many hundreds of people from other parts of the world, we've housed them.
Councillor Morford.
Thank you, Chair. Martin and I welcome the report, along with the environmental policy statements that it refers to and the ecological emergency declaration that preceded it. We thought it was a very thorough report and that the sections on flood risk management were particularly informative, as well as being particularly relevant right now. We did notice, however, that all talk of slowing the flow of water was at the property level rather than at the landscape level. And we'd like to encourage the Cabinet Member for the Environment to pay more attention to catchment-based natural flood management methods in the future.
I take that on board. It's something we have been discussing both in Cabinet and with the relevant officers, so yes, we'll take that on board.
I've got Councillor Hunter.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's on page 30, 5.49. One of the often discussed topics at parish council meetings is grass cutting. And it's nothing against the grass cutting, the staff do a good job, but if there's going to be any changes to the level of grass cutting, can we please inform parish councils quick enough? Because they're actually starting to set their budgets now. So please, can we liaise and consult with them quick enough to allow them, if they want to support and help us?
Right, on this point of the grounds maintenance review, we've got a system in place at the moment that has been the same system for many years. And most of the time it works right, but parish councils and town councils always expect something like between 11 and 13 cuts a year. You can't always do that because of the weather. But the other thing we're looking at is that because we've got all these parks, we haven't just got the, 19 or 20 parks, we've got acres and acres of open spaces and green spaces. And we're looking at a way of maybe enhancing the experience of people to visit them. So we haven't just got a massive expanse of green that's just cut a dozen times a year. We want to sort of like make it a better experience, look at the type of planting, better access. So that's what it's all about. We're not cutting the service, it's a review to modernise it, to see just what we can do better. And of course, on the point of the parish councils, obviously, you would be informed of anything.
Now, we're going to have 3 final questioners, because I think once we've done that, we've done very well in having a balance. I'm indulging ourselves in these extra 3, to be honest. But I think I'm in a good spirited mood today. I think it's a good spirited council today as well. Councillor Carty, then Councillor Swinburne, then Councillor Dale. Councillor Carty.
Mine's just a very quick question, and I have spoken to you about this, Councillor Horncastle. In Blythe, we have a fair few derelict properties, which have been derelict since I was very small, right? Every time I ask for these properties to be looked at, because it's affecting the health and the well-being of the neighbours in the street in general, the issue is it's in the hand of solicitors, the property owners, whatever. It's a continuous circle. These are good properties, far be it would cost a heck of a lot of money to put right. Why can't you just take these properties? This person doesn't want them. No, there's a legal process, but it's going round in circles and it's not going to end unless something is done by you as a council.
Yes, we've spoken about this. I can't go into actual detail about it because there's people concerned. But what's happened here is that there's a property being left derelict. The owner died. There's nobody seems to take on the estate over. The property next door has got terrible water ingress. And from a legal point of view, it seems like we can't do anything. But perhaps if we can take this on board from a legal point of view to get it looked at. Steve, okay?
Councillor Swinburne.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Horncastle. I just want to take this opportunity before I ask my question to point out a couple of things. So you've mentioned about the housing team, and I want to point out that I'm very pleased to see that we've volunteered to be a pilot for the housing regulation inspections in this council. I'm sure, as we've seen in the press, that some of our neighbouring councils will probably shy away from doing that, given some of the horrors that we've seen. But I want to take this opportunity to thank the housing team. I know that there's some of the officers been working really hard in the background on one particular issue in my ward. I have a social housing estate which is predominantly prefabricated properties. It was built with a life expectancy of 20 years, and that's they were built of primarily timber and asbestos. They've now been up nearly 60 years, and I know the officers are working really hard at how we can resolve that situation, and I know they're getting very close at a resolution on that. So if you can pass on me thanks for that, please. Councillor Hunter has already highlighted the review, along with some colleagues. I met with the Executive Director with regards to this, and they announced that they were doing a review on local services, and I'm really pleased to see that they're going to be involved in local communities, because especially with the bad weather we've had this year, I'm sure the local communities would really enjoy having some say and some feedback with regards to any changes we've had. My question I have is reference to item 5.5. I know you want to flick through there, but it's quite easy, really. It's in relation to the ash dieback. I know I've already seen some work on in my ward and in Cramlington as a whole. And as a county, I'm very aware that we do have a lot of ash trees that are going to need some attention, some culling, as it were. How are we going to address this problem, but still maintain the regular maintenance that we have to with the rest of the trees for our residents? If you could answer that for me, please.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, this, because it was only less than 2 years ago we had Storm Arwen, and the damage that caused to all sorts of trees, not just ash trees. On the ash issue, from what I'm led to believe, I think they've done the surveys on the A68, the A69, and the problem there is not quite as bad as we thought. And I was talking to some tree surgeon type people who weren't our members, but people who perhaps do work for the council. And I think, and Paul Jones has given me the evil eye here, I think how it works with the ash dieback, 100% leaf damage, 50%, 75% the go priority, 50% of the leaves that haven't come, and 25% they're not quite a priority. But that's not something I've discussed with Paul or his team yet, but something we'll be coming on to. But the ash dieback on 2 of our major roads, 68 and 69, not as bad as we thought.
Councillor Dale.
Thank you very much. Just to refer back to the 550 as well, the tree management policy, which I welcome. I think this was driven by Councillor Dodd, I remember through scrutiny, and Ash Dieback, so I think he got called Mr Ash Dieback. But the big thing is that we actually have the funding available to do the work the policy dictates. So, for instance, Fix My Streets, we've had 700 concerns raised about trees. And if we're going to have a policy, we have to have the funding to be able to respond to that policy, but actually to respond to what the people want. So could you look into that, please?
Look into it, and like I say, at this stage, it's emergency work and doing the surveys. And I'll be picking this up with Paul Jones very soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Horncastle. Thank you, Council. I now move on to item 8 on the agenda, which is the annual Cabinet report from the Cabinet member for inspiring young people. And I'd like to invite Councillor Renner Thompson to present the report.
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman, and thank you to Councillor Horncastle for a very brief summary of his report before me. So I'm going to follow on that same vein and try and not say very much. First of all, I wouldn't be doing the correct thing if I didn't highlight all the fine work of our council staff in children's services, but also our staff out there, our teachers, our head teachers, the partners, communities and families across the portfolio that I and many others, all of you, have had the chance to work with, and of course the pupils who are the ones that we all, and the looked after children who are the ones that we all work to look after. So I've got only 4 things I want to highlight from the report. There are many more things in the report which I'm happy to take questions on. It's no surprise to you, I'll start with our Ofsted ratings. We are currently hot off the press on our data, sitting at 95% good or outstanding across the county, which is a great achievement. It follows on the continuing trends from when we took over in 2017. A lot of that is down to the hard work of individual teachers, but also the council school improvement team, which we have turbocharged and put some more money into. I know you're sick of me going on about this, but you have to repeat things so people remember it, and people outside of this chamber have started to quote those figures, not just us. So that message is really sinking in. We're hoping to trial that work along with other local authorities. We've got other local authorities who are interested in seeing how we've done that and how they can learn from us. So that's something that you can all be proud of. The second thing I'll raise is our investment programme. I had the pleasure of going down to our new welding and fabrication centre in Blythe, which has been quoted by industry as the finest example of a welding and fabrication centre in the whole country. We do that because there's no point in getting the new jobs for the future in the county if we're not employing local people in those jobs. So to do that, we have to invest into our skilled service. Of course, we've had the investment in Blythe, but we've also seen the new construction centre in Seg Hill. We've seen the new Lindisfarne Centre open in Alnwick, which I went to on one of your middle school sites. And on Friday, I was in Hayden Bridge with Guy Opperman, looking at the services that we have in Hayden Bridge High School. When that school had a lot of financial investment from the council, when we saved it from closure some years ago, we invested in construction facilities, hair and beauty facilities. Those haven't been utilised the way we would like so far, but they're going to be going forward. So that's all 4 counties of the county that we're trying to do something in. We also had the pleasure of bringing in Dame Andrea Leadsom, who's the government's early years advisor on a tour around our new family hubs. We went to Blythe and we went to Berwick. Her and the government officials were quoted as saying it was some of the best practice they've seen in the country, which you can see from our early years report with higher instances of breastfeeding, for example, in children. That is what the family hubs are there to do. But then the old Sure Start centres were 0 to 5. These hubs are a one-stop shop from 0 to 19 or up to 25 for children with special additional needs. We are a trial. The government are watching us very closely, but from what I'm told, they're very happy with what we've done. And finally, we want to highlight the work we continue to do to support families during the school summer holidays, which is something this council and the public have been very passionate about. Last summer, the council provided a great programme of activities as part of a government scheme to help ensure our children and young people have a summer of fun, adventure and healthy food. We've hosted holiday camps, we've hosted activities and trips for families. We've had community days in parks and on beaches, and all those taking part got a healthy meal. It's something we can really be proud of. So I'll happily end my report presentation there and open it up to questions.
Right. I've had indications from 5 councillors: Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Ball, Councillor Foster, Councillor Scott and Councillor Morford. If anyone else would like to ask a question, can you indicate fairly soon? Councillor Hill, but I'll go from that list, but if you could indicate fairly quickly so we can manage this, that'd be great. And I'll go to Councillor Kennedy first.
And thank you, Guy. You know, there's some excellent numbers in here, so congratulations on that. But point I always wish to raise, it was a point I raised at the end of the school term earlier this year, in which I had several members of staff of the County Council. My son has a special education needs, and I used to take him to a Thursday club in Hexham. And the staff members there, who were fantastic, you know, there's a couple of hours there, along with several other special needs children, used to attend that. And at the end of that term, they came to me, some of them in tears, and said, you know, we're being made redundant. And I started to contact several councillors, and we all sort of going, what have you heard? What have you heard? And we started to put the jigsaw puzzle pieces together and found out it was quite a number of staff being made redundant. And I think I did raise this with the leader at that time in the council, and said, you know, obviously we're lost in that service. And I was told, don't worry, Derek, the service will be reinstated by the start of the new term, September. Well, it's now November, and that service has not been reinstated. I've been in touch with a member of council staff, and we've had a nice conversation, and she's expressed her frustrations, and that she's trying to do her best within the confines of the county council. But the information I had was that it won't happen this year. So that's a service for those special needs children across this county that's just not being serviced. And you know, when you come here, you ask questions in good faith, and you expect the answer to be in good faith. But I'm afraid we haven't had the promise that we were offered. So that's still a gap there. So the question is, when will that be serviced, please?
Councillor Renner Thompson.
Although I can talk at length about what's going on across the wider county, I don't have the specific information about the Thursday club in Hexham. I'm sorry. But I'm sure Graham and Audrey over there will get me that answer, and I'll be able to give it to you.
Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Chair. So this report, Inspiring Young People, there's no mention of youth work. So, Glenn, you're talking about all the triumphs and singing and dancing about everything that you've done, but there's been almost $1 billion in decline in youth work spend under the Tories. And this is fact, it's in the YMCE report, it's in the UK Youth report. So you come in to Fact Sky and you said that these family hubs were going to be this, that and the other, and they were going to be absolutely brilliant, that we wouldn't be using youth workers. So I would question, where are the youth workers gone? Because we don't have any in this county anymore. We cannot put pressure on the voluntary and community sector who are under strain due to the Tories, because we have people who are destitute, child poverty rates are through the roof, and children and young people are very important. And you like to repeat yourself. Well, I've mentioned this on many occasions in this meeting. For every £1 invested in youth work, it saves the taxpayers between £3.20 and £6.40 for every £1. And we don't have a youth worker in Northumberland. So what is it? Either we inspire the young people or we don't, because this report doesn't inspire me and I'm really disappointed. And the staff are doing great stuff within education and everything else, but these cuts are harming the young people in Northumberland now. Thank you.
Councillor Renner Thompson.
So you'll be glad to hear there haven't been any cuts to our youth provision. So we've had 12 posts. The equivalent of 3.2 full-time workers have been made redundant. There was a big consultation went into that. One of those posts, for example, was only looking after a club that housed 3 children. So we have to look at our resources and what we can do. We have replaced those 3.2 full-time jobs with 4 youth support workers, so an increase of 1 full-time post. That is in addition to the 5 support posts we've created within our schools themselves, and there is the potential for another 2 youth support workers to come in. We're also working with Thriving Together, Learning Link and the North East Youth Alliance on a cross-regional youth offer. We currently have mapped out, this is the whole point of the family, one of the whole point of the moving youth service into the family hubs. We've mapped out 387 young persons providers in the county. So you can't say there's no youth workers in Northumberland. There are lots of youth workers in Northumberland. And we are going to be the ones supporting them through the family hubs. That was the whole point of the change from a dedicated youth service to put them into the family hub. So you can trace the young people who are really in need. When you were all young, and when many people were young, the youth service was a pool table in the village hall and everyone went and it was great. But those days have gone. That's not what young people want. We're currently doing a survey with young people, and from that survey, they will tell us what they want, and that is the provision that we'll move towards. So the old system just isn't what young people want or need anymore. We're moving to the future where we provide what people actually need.
Right, for clarity, I'm just going to say that you mentioned the North East Youth Alliance. Now, I work for Youth Focus North East, which is on my declaration, but North East Youth Alliance is not on my declaration, although Youth Focus North East are part of the North East Youth Alliance. So I'm declaring that now. Okay, and the next question is from Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. Before I go into what I'm actually wanting to say, I'm just going to refer back to this survey for young children. Where's that survey going to young children? Because I have a young child and I've seen not hiding a hair of any survey about what they would like. So I would like some information on that, being a parent of a secondary school child. But what I really want to say is recently there's been an issue with a contractor going into liquidation, which has affected a number of our schools, including the Gilbert Ward Academy and the Corket Partnership, and therefore affecting our children as well. So I just want to say that I'd written recently to the Executive Director for Children, Young People and Education regarding this with the concerns, and I'd just like to thank her on behalf of our group for the prompt response and to acknowledge the extra work that's going on behind the scenes from her team as a whole to address the situation and to put our children and young people at the heart of what they're doing. So thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Renner Thompson, do you wish to respond there?
No, exactly right. We have had a contractor go into administration, not something that we're in control of, but we do have contingencies for that occasion. The school building programme is incredibly important to us, not just because it's something we believe in, but legally, once you've done the consultations on where children are going to go or not go, You really do have to follow through on those new buildings. So we're pulling out all the stops that we can to make sure there are no delays to our school build programme in Blythe and in the Cogan School Partnership, and I can say that there are no delays.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. So, Engage has recently closed in Blythe. These children are the responsibility of Northumberland County Council. Can I ask if the risk protocol is robust enough to support these families and schools who have had a week to find an alternative place for their child?
Councillor Renner-Thompson.
Yeah, discussions on the finishing of Engage are still ongoing, so it's not something that I really want to talk about too much in this forum. However, I would happy to have a one-to-one meeting with you, and I know you've had meetings with the council staff as well, so my door is open on that.
Councillor Morford.
Thank you. The Green Party group welcomes the report. We didn't find paragraph 510 on page 35 quite as reassuring as we would have liked to have done, however, and we consider the statement that no issues with reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete have been reported in our maintained schools to be rather vague. Would the Cabinet Member for Young People be able to tell us whether full structural surveys have been conducted at each school and perhaps give us a concrete guarantee that we don't have a rack problem in our schools?
I can give you that concrete guarantee that we don't have a rack problem in our schools. Structural surveys are carried out by ourselves and the DFE on a rolling basis. But when the rack issue was brought to the fore, we went round all the schools, spoke to them individually, and they individually confirmed that they don't have any, whether that would be council schools, church schools, academies, all sorts of different types of school now. But yes, I can categorically assure you that there is no rack in any school in Northumberland.
Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. When I saw the title, Inspiring Young People, I thought that this was Guy encouraging young people to have ambitions to be Mayor of the North East, but or maybe to finish third. No, my point, and if I could just add to it because it is of utmost urgency, was regarding Engage in Berwick, which is outstanding, and can have assurances that you'll do all you can to support Jackie in Berwick, who's doing all she can, so there's a continuation of the excellent provision in Berwick.
Councillor Renner-Thompson.
Absolutely, and I think from the questions I've had today, it would be a good idea that when we know for certain what we're doing with Engage and everything's being ironed out, we have a member briefing to those members in those areas where Engage works, so that everyone's on the same footing and we all have the same information.
I'm going to take a final question from Councillor Carty. Councillor Carty.
Thank you, Councillor Flux. Just for transparency reasons, I actually run youth projects in Blythe. I'm also a member of NA Youth, which is the North East Youth Alliance, so I want to be clear on that. But I'm absolutely baffled at what you've just said, that traditional youth clubs are in the past. I can assure you they are not, right? We get 15, 20, 30 young people in our sessions 4 times a week, and they do want to play a pool. They want a safe place to meet with their friends. They're not necessarily children that have got mega social issues, but these are children that are living in poverty in one of the most deprived wards in Northumberland. The funding for the voluntary youth service is going down and down and down. Children in need have cut their funding. There's no funding from council anymore. We used to get a tiny little bit of funding from council, but we don't, to support these young people. I cannot believe what you've just said, that traditional youth clubs are a thing of the past. You're very welcome to come and visit my youth club and I will show you something different. Thank you.
Councillor Renner-Thompson.
No, my apologies if that's the gist of what you got. What I should have said, that they're not a thing that the council will fund anymore. However, they are a thing. Organisations like yours that do fantastic work are organisations that we will support. And if you out in your communities are running a youth service that has a need and the young people want, it is something we will support. But gone are the days where the council will like I said, put a pool table in every village hall just because they think it's the right thing to do. We will now only support what we know is the right thing to do.
Thank you for that. I now go on to item 9 on the agenda, which is the Family Children's Services. Just check I'm on the right page. Actually, yes, I am. Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Can I have order? Interim report to Council, and I'd like to invite Councillor Daly. There's a lot of chatter going on. Can I ask that chatter stops? It's just, I have a hearing issue at the moment, so that'd be much appreciated. Councillor Daly, as Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, can you present this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. As members will know, in the past, full council's been presented with the minutes of facts and other scrutiny committees. What under the changes, what we're doing is we're producing these interim reports, copies of the minutes, and indeed full viewing of our facts and other scrutiny committee meetings are available on the YouTube channel. So what I want to do now is, rather than just those dry minutes which used to come to every full council, is try to bring to life some of the work which is done by the Family and Children's Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Now, for those members who are on it, who are very vociferous, they'll know we're a very engaging scrutiny committee. We don't always agree with things, but we are engaging. And we're also quite unique in the fact that we have external members on that scrutiny committee. Those include representatives from faith organisations, from our school partners, and also from our trade union colleagues as well. And they really do bring a very detailed level of debate and scrutiny into our process. So what I wanted to do with this interim report, which you have, is just to give you an overview. It's not the granular detail. The granular detail is in the reports, which are all available online. You can come and talk to me if you want, and I'll get you the reports. This is overview. So what I wanted to do was just pick on a few of the things that we have done as a scrutiny committee. The first one I want to touch on, and I'm assuming everyone has read their reports, so that's good. So the first one I want to touch on is the annual report of the principal social worker. That is a really important statutory report which comes to our committee every year. Our frontline social work staff deal with some of the hardest cases that we face in this county. During COVID, they were there. Like our teaching staff, they were there. Like our emergency services, they were there. And I think one of the things which I want to do is to provide assurance to full council about the work of the social work team. So a few years ago, I won't go into the full detail, but a few years ago, there was loads of poaching of social workers. One particular local authority in the northeast used to up their pay rates literally every week and pinch people from other organisations, and it became an absolute disaster. And it became a disaster because we relied heavily on agency staff. As part of the process, when we came in 2017, a really good piece of groundbreaking work with officers was to create an academy. That is to grow our own social workers, but also try to deal with that issue about those pay rates which were being done by one particular local authority. That was settled, that was agreed. What we've done is we agreed to set up our own academy, and that academy is responsible for working with our future workforce, and it is highly successful. In fact, it actually it underscores the challenging reduction in social workers at national level, whereas in Northumberland, we've slightly bucked that trend, and I think that's largely down to the work which has been put in by staff for the academy. On top of that, we're also setting up a degree in social work apprentice model as well, which again will give people a new route into working in social work. One of the problems from COVID is that it reduced the number of people who were interested in getting involved in social work, and we really need to get people to see it as a fantastic profession which feeds back into our communities and makes significant impact on the life change, on the life outcomes of young people. I just want to touch on two things which aren't in the report, because I know everyone will be interested in this, but caseloads nationally for social workers are one of the big issues why so many social workers leave the profession. Nationally, the caseload is about 18. In Northumberland, our caseload is between 15 to 17. It's lower than the national average because we have a support mechanism. We have something called the assessed and supported year in employment as well, with team leaders who work, engage and listen to our social workers because, as I've said, they are dealing with some of the most challenging members of our community. So I think that was a really good piece of work, and that, if you want to go back to the YouTube video, look at June 2023 and you'll see the detailed discussion which took place. Something else we've dealt with on the interim period is the school transport review. This again is something which every member will at some point or other have had some issue with residents about. So what I'm pleased to say is, and if you haven't got it, go to your June pack for the Family and Children's Services. If you haven't got it, I'm happy to send it out. There were 36 key recommendations which came out of the Home School Transport Review. 30 of those have been adopted. And what I'm really pleased about, and the members who are on facts will know this, is there was a bit of co-production which went on, because it wasn't just officers, it wasn't just the members of the committee, it wasn't just the external voting members of the committee, trade unions and schools that took part in this. We also had a really, really vociferous parent, passionate about homeschool transport, and we worked with her, and she was part of developing a solution going ahead for homeschool transport. But again, just to reaffirm, of the 36 recommendations in that report, 30 of them have been implemented. We also had, I'm delighted to say, a special meeting solely dedicated to Berwick and the school partnership reorganisation there. Fantastically well-attended scrutiny meeting where we looked at the proposals following the first and second statutory stage consultations. We had a delegation of head teachers, of governors and support staff who came along, and actually the committee was very comfortable with the whole process, what had been done and the engagement that we had with our teaching staff. And also something as well I want to touch on is moving to the school improvement team. Guy Renner-Thompson's mentioned them. They're a hidden jewel, a hidden gem of this local authority, largely made up of ex-teachers, people with very, very, very detailed knowledge of working in schools, and they work with schools to help them get through that Ofsted hoop, but also on their day-to-day operation, which includes working with issues around attainment, because that particularly has affected since COVID, and also attendance as well. So they've done a huge amount of work to support those schools. And I think for us as an organisation, it's been very much part and parcel of how we have changed from what was quite a failing local authority in 2017 to one of the best leading authorities in this country, with our Ofsted results actually improving massively. And that's largely down to our school support team that our schools actually trust. So again, the scrutiny committee dealt with that and did a very, very detailed piece of work and gave them our unconditional support. And indeed, we sent a recommendation through to Cabinet not to cut their funding, which I believe has been approved. Is that right? Yes, very good. There we are. And the final thing I want to touch on through scrutiny is the SEND Strategy Progress Report. And I know that we've had this mentioned in a previous discussion there. And this is all within the prism of a massive increase in what's called AHCPs, Educational Healthcare Plans. Some of the qualities of those a few years back were terrible. They did nothing for the young people, nothing for their life chances. There was a huge piece of work which went on around training teachers about how to develop an educational healthcare plan, which is very much around supporting young people to stay in their traditional school. It's an inclusive education process. So I'm delighted to say that we've had quite a bit of discussion in the Scrutiny Committee about that, and we now have a task and finish group which will be reporting early 2024, and that is a very, very detailed piece of work which will help shape and frame our policy as a council going forward. I'd like, finally, Chair, if I can, just to express my thanks and gratitude to Councillor Dodd, who has been on the committee since 2021. He was Vice Chair. He's now been poached to go somewhere else. So I'd like to welcome Councillor Eve Chicken as the new Vice Chair. But also as well, I think, to thank all of our support staff within the council, our teaching staff, our support staff, the cooks, the cleaners, all those people who make all of our schools work really, really well, and the parents and the young people themselves, because without that collective teamwork, we would not be achieving the results we have. But finally, what I would say to any member is, you can come along to our Facts Scrutiny Committee meetings, no problem. If you see the agenda online, which you should be able to, have a look at it. If there's something on there which is of interest to you, you can't make it, please contact me. I'm happy to ask questions on your behalf. And if you think there's something we're not scrutinising, then I can have a look at that to see where we can put it onto our work programme. So with that, Chair, I'll commend the report to Council.
Thank you. I think I counted 3 finalies there. Sorry? Do we have any questions?
Oh, 3, did I? All right, sorry.
Do I have any questions? Councillor Grimshaw.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the excellent report, Wayne. I would like to ask, when we have people coming in from other countries, refugees, etc., and could I ask, what's implemented with them, parents getting their children into schools, especially special educational needs, as close as possible to where they live, and are they still split, families still split when one child may go to one school, maybe Cromlington or Bedlington or Blythe or Ashington? I would just like a little bit more clarification around that, Wayne, if you don't mind. Thank you.
So, thank you. I won't say the word finally because that will be 4. In answer to your substantive question, with our Ukrainian, Syrian and Afghan refugees who came in with children, we had a priority, and we upheld that commitment to put them into the nearest school available. On your second point about whether young people have been split for whatever reason, I can't answer that because I'll have to get that as a specific question to officers. But if you are aware of that happening, please let myself or Audrey King know. We'll look into that. But obviously, depending on whether in primary or secondary school, there will be in different schools. But we made an absolute 100% commitment to get them into their local school, which is exactly what happened. And we've been working with them with support as well around translation and also that wider mental health support as well. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. May I come back if you don't mind? Just to respond.
I don't think I can, Councillor Grimshaw.
Well, that's fine.
Chair, I'll take it up afterwards if that's all right.
That would be really helpful. Thank you. Councillor Gallagher had his hand up.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Daly, for your report. I just want to come back to your report around the home to school transport. So there's something that maybe is missing. We're always thanking our staff because they do an incredible job. I've been working with this department and keeping in contact with them. I'm not a part of Facts, and it was just one of the things that covers my shadow portfolio. This group of people have been fantastic all the way through, and we'll forget COVID. They dealt with COVID in a different way, and they came out with their champions. They've also went through the cost of living, the cost of fuel. They've had issues with the difficult times where we've had companies go bust. And all the way through there, they've been solid for this council. And I just think that without saying that, it would be a crime to that department. And the other thing is that we're trying to steer away and think about different ways to deliver that kind of transport. So we're not always looking at the big companies, we're looking at the smaller companies, but more than anything else, we're supporting them through the cost of living. When the cost of fuel drops, we're supporting them when the cost of insurance comes up. So there's that open dialogue all the time. And I think it's a well done to that team, because I can't say anything more about Facts because that's the only group of staff that I work with, but they're doing a fantastic job. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. almost a question there. Did you want to answer that?
Yeah, if I could just really quickly, and I think that your point is really well taken there. So as part of that school transport scrutiny, officers went along and spoke to at least 5 other local authorities in different parts of the country, looked at different models. There were also models that we're currently developing, which is pilot models about direct transport to school. So I think what we have now with our school transport system is a really innovative solution for our both urban and rural mix. And I'm sure that Audrey will pass on your comments, but they've done an exemplary job. And thank you for that.
Now going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 10, the report of the Health, Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny Committee interim report to Council. I'd like to invite Councillor Dodd, as chair of this scrutiny committee, to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. I'm new to this committee, as in only a few weeks, and I'd like to pay a thank you to Councillor Veronica Jones, who was chairing this scrutiny for 2.5 years, for the work and commitment that she has done, and she's obviously been given some promotion to the Cabinet. So thank you, Veronica. Our committee plays a vital role in our health, in adult social care, the public health, and we examine various topics, and a lot of them keep on recurring. You will all be aware of that. And items 1 and 2 have similar traits in them about maintaining and keeping and recruiting a workforce. You can see that workforce shortages, and that we have about 200 to 220 people who are in need of some services, and we are trying to work with, try and make sure that the conditions are better, the pay is better, the salaries are better, and things like petrol, travel, etc. are becoming more attractive. This is not a new problem, and it's very similar to item 2, which is contingent plans for management arrangements and commissioned adult social care services. And these two are ongoing briefs from this scrutiny committee. We have considered things like in-house, bringing things in-house, but there are financial risks to that. Again, it's about the workplace and fuel. The other thing is item 3, and this is a real concern. This is about notification of closure of 100-hour pharmacies in Cramlington. Now, if this is in one place, it's a one-off, but I think it's not a one-off. I think this small stream may turn into a river, because if the pharmacies are not making money and they all start to close, we will have a problem servicing the people of Northumberland. So I want you to wake up when you see that one, and when we hear of any more closures, because we will have to address this and look into this. So please, we've got this on a task and finish work group, so we're hopefully looking at that under Kath Nesbitt. So we hope that we can, assist with the outcome that comes out of that. We also had last meeting HM Senior Coroner Andrew Hetherington's annual report. This was quite interesting. In terms, about 4,000 people die every year in this county. And that's the kind of number we all represent. That figure has hardly changed. What did come up was the suicides. The suicides doubled under COVID. And we're looked into that. But it's now at the previous level. Not that it's a decent level to have at, it's just everything is different. So we have concerns there. We also look at various challenges like the Lucy Letby inquiry that's coming up. Is that got an effect, or will that ever be repeated? And obviously we've got the North East Ambulance Service coming to address us soon, because I think that gets the blame. I used to be on the Ambulance Trust for a while, and it is very interesting. So I'm hoping that we take an interest. And I know that people from the far reaches do take an interest in the ambulance service, because it is a bit longer. And the other task and finish group, and I'm finding this very, very interesting, is we're going to look into defibrillators. Now then, there's been a mad rush for defibrillators, to stick them on village halls, schools, everything. And I got my ear bent there was a crash at Belsay, someone had a heart attack. And someone said, there was no defibrillator. I said, there is. There's one at the school, 100 yards away. So we are looking at where they are, who has them, because one thing I've learned is the defibrillator battery only lasts 5 years. The pads that go with them only last 5 years. And to replace them is £400. Who does that? Councillor Les Bowman brought up that somewhere over your area, you said there's about 20 in one place. So I think we need a little look at where things are, how do people access where they are, what is the process. We all know that you ring 999 and they'll tell you where they are. But I think we need a little bit more information that we can actually use to find, because everybody's rushed to have a defibrillator. But if they don't work, they're no good. So I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Dodd. I think you're right in terms of the potential flow of issues with community pharmacies. So it's absolutely the right thing to set up a task and finish group with Councillor Nesbitt leading that. One of the issues that is also a river that continues to flow, and particularly in my ward, is the closure of dental practices. And that continues to be a huge issue that affects children and Northumberland residents in terms of access. I was thankfully invited to the committee that were discussing it at the time to give the local account of what's actually happening there. And I was told that the access wouldn't be affected. And we've lost 2 dental practices in my ward. And this week alone, I was told that I would be on an 800 waiting list to join the next practice next door. So it is a big issue. It's happening all over Northumberland. It does relate to national funding, but there has to be something on a local level that needs to monitor it and ensure that we speak up for the Northumberland residents and their access across Northumberland.
Councillor Dodd.
We'll put that on the agenda, and I'm aware of that as well. So we'll keep it. I'll keep Councillor Dickinson with them.
Right. I've got a further 5 speakers. I think we've probably exhausted it by then. I've got Councillor Carty, Councillor Swinburne, Councillor Morford, Councillor Ferguson and Councillor Grimshaw. So I'll call Councillor Eileen Carty.
Thank you, Councillor Flux. I'm actually pleased you brought up the chemist issue, because I had a conversation through the week within another group that I'm part of. And in Newsham and Blythe, they're really concerned that they're going to lose their chemist. Newsham has had fast house building going on. It's still getting built up. We've got an ageing population in Newsham, and actually that needs to be addressed in these little small, like, out towns of Blythe. So I'm pleased you're looking at that. I know there was another chemist, I believe, closed in Blythe as well at the health centre, but it needs addressing. Because of the massive amount of house building that's going on, we need to try and ensure these chemists are kept open, or look at how it could be made easier to keep them. Maybe put them inside of another shop somewhere, so you've got a shop within a shop, something like that. But something needs to be done, and I'm really pleased you're doing that. So, but I do want to be kept involved with it, because people are asking me, and Newsham isn't even my ward, but they've come and asked me about it. So, thank you.
Councillor Dodd.
Yeah, part of the problem, I think, is supermarkets. In their rush to make billions and billions, they wanted to supply everything. And now that things get a bit tougher, they are backing out of some of these services. Then we've got the internet. You know, you can get things delivered online type thing. So I think it's a big item. It's there. We will be looking at it.
Right, I've got Councillor Swinburne.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Dodd. Can I just also thank Councillor Nisbet for inviting me into the Task and Finish group when that was being discussed, because the 100-hour pharmacy in Cramlington, although, excuse me, strategically it's in the town centre, was in my ward. Now, it's not just the extended hours that's caused a problem in Cramlington. It's the fact that that pharmacy stocked items that you can't get in other pharmacies in Cramlington, and that's caused a significant issue. But with that closure, and just to add, that they actually left the site before they were supposed to, before the end of their contract or their notice period. It's the significant strain that it's put on those pharmacies that are left. So this is very difficult. I've read in media that there's rumours about various other pharmacies across Northumberland, and we know it's a potential escalating issue. It's difficult because how much control the council has over this. All I'm going to say is, with regards to Task and Finish Group, I would really appreciate just let me know some of the outcome on that, because as some others have already mentioned, and my colleagues in Cramlington, we're getting a lot of what's happening. We see the massive queues coming out of some of the remaining pharmacies in Cramlington because of the strain on them, and they're all asking us what's happening, what's the solution, and at the moment we just don't have any answers. So any information that you can give us will be greatly appreciated, please.
Right, Councillor Dodd.
Yeah, I did say if this becomes a real problem, we have a problem, because it is going to affect everybody. I mean, at the end of the day, they've got to make a profit, and I think it's down to they've got to have a pharmacist there for 100 hours, and that's why they're called 100-hour pharmacies. And again, that will bring a cost. But I think we need to delve on this. What we do as a council have tentacles of power. I was chairman of the Health and Wellbeing Board, and every closure has to go through some process. Not like schools, but it's a similar sort of ask. So I think we can work together with the Health and Wellbeing Board on what we can do. Thank you.
Of course, Councillor Ezel Shelvin's chair of that board now, as a Cramlington member, will probably keep everyone updated in Cramlington. Councillor Morford.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Councillor Dodd for the report and say how much the Green Party Group appreciates the committee's comments about the importance of making care work a more attractive profession. And I'd also like to add that Martin and I feel that it's not just about improving care workers' salaries and working conditions. It's also about making them feel more valued in every way. It's only by making care work something that people really want to do and feel really proud to do that will solve the workforce crisis. So thank you.
Okay.
Noted, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. And on the next questions from Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. It was really around the pharmacy which has been kind of done to death, so I will withdraw from that. Thank you.
Councillor Grimshaw.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a plea. And as Councillor Dodds rightly says, there's probably going to be a river now instead of just a little bit of sprinkling of water with these chemists closing. My concern, and I know you'll address it because we've got some wonderful officers and wonderful people on various committees, it's to do with our vulnerable residents. And because a lot of these people get their medication delivered as well as care homes. And I'm just wondering how, if we could keep an eye on that situation, because especially as in the rural areas, because if their chemists close and they've been relying on getting their medication delivered, what situation is that going to put all these vulnerable residents and care home providers in? Thanks, Councillor Dodd.
Again, noted, and we'll give it an air.
And I'm just going to indulge one final question from Councillor Bridget, because he caught my eye.
It's just to say I'm pleased you're actually looking at the defibrillator issue, Richard. It is a really important issue, and as many of you'll know, it was part of trying to save my mum's life when she collapsed with a heart attack. But one of the things that I would ask many members in here, because you'll have them all over your division, is do you know how to use them? Because I wouldn't know where to start. And I've since looked into it because I've got a number of defibrillators, which Councillor Dodds alluded to, across the division I represent. And there's no definitive map of where they are. There's no definitive access point for them. Some of them have details on how when you ring 999, they'll give you the code. to be able to access them. Not all of them do that. Some of them have been put in place by village halls, some of them have been put in place by private enterprises, but there's no definitive list. There is some points online when you look at them that lists a number across the county, but not all of them. And I think it's important that, luckily, the people that needed to access it for my mum, she was surrounded by paramedics anyway. But I think it's important that us as well, as councillors in the local communities, know where they are, how to access them, and if we need to direct people as well, because there is no definitive list.
I think Councillor Mather might be able to answer that. And
yeah, thanks, Chair. As a community first responder, responding to these incidents, still, there is a list, and there's a programme called The Circuit that has them all listed. And I think we need to pay thanks to those village halls, the parish councils that fund these. It's a really interesting topic, but I think the key is the training here. We all need to be aware of how to look after ourselves, how to use the defibrillators, but there's a reason why there's a process in place to stop us going straight for that defibrillator. There's actually more important things we need to be doing before we get the defibrillator, and I think that's the key message. This council needs to be on the same page as the ambulance service for all that. So I'm happy to work with the committee and look further into rural and in urban defibrillators.
I'll let Councillor Dodd just finish there if he wished to.
Yeah, it's obviously a topic that is keen to everybody's heart. So my thinking was a lot of people know they're out there, but they haven't a clue where they are. And I think that we need a sign at every school, at every village hall that is visible, whether it's a heart on a stick or a pole or whatever in the Northumberland colours, whatever I'm looking for ideas. And I'm sure there's one or two good ideas. Please email myself, Kath Nesbitt, Chris Angus, or anybody that will invite you along to the working group to say what your ideas are. But I think we've got all these machines. I would love to know the number that are there, because I think it would be staggering. And as I say, the ongoing costs is about £400, and I'm told it's not when they're put up, it's when they were made. And I have heard a horror story where someone had been to the gym, they got the machine out and all that, and the battery was flat. So it is a serious topic. It's something that we will take pride if we get it right, and we'll have to improve if we get it wrong. But I think it's something, there's been a dash for these machines, but I think we now need the dash to maintain them. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Dodd. I now move on to item 11 on the agenda, which is a report of the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Corporate Services. The report is the Corporate Performance Q4 22-23 Outturn Report. This was reported to Cabinet in October, and again, it's good practice to bring such reports to full Council. This is about being open and accountable on how the organisation is progressing against the 3 priorities which Council agreed in its corporate plan. So I'd like to invite Councillor Wearmouth to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. You've nicked at least 4 of my opening paragraphs. It makes it a shorter speech from me, which you'll all be happy about, I'm sure. So this report is looking back. It's at the end of the last financial year, so please do keep that in mind when you're asking any questions. Obviously, things have changed in the time since, and invariably for the better. I'd just like to flag a few things up in the report which are perhaps of interest. Particular thanks to our customer services team, who've achieved 92% of all calls answered when they've come into the council at an average speed of 136 seconds, which if you've been on the phone to an insurance company or HMRC or anyone else like that, believe me, that's an exceptional time that's been done by the team here. And they get a huge variety of questions. I think the most interesting one, when myself and the leader were there the other day, which someone had rang in asking what 4 across was on the Times crossword or something like that. So we get a huge variety, and all I would urge is that people don't ring in and ask those questions, but we do our best to find the answers, regardless. It was, yes. Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. In terms of the looking at the financial position of the council, obviously, It was a very turbulent year financially. There was big changes in interest rates, in inflation, but nonetheless we ended that financial year with an underspend of £5.8 million for 22-23. Very pleased to see the improvement that we've had in using local contractors. I'm sure that's something that everybody within the council embraces. We want to do more of that, and we'll be pushing to be successful in that through part of the BEST programme and other projects that are running across the council. We've had a hard push with super-fast broadband, and we've been making good progress in that regard. I know that there will be wards, and I can see Councillor Dale at the back noting that there's always more we can be doing, and there's always more that we will be doing as well. We've got some fresh and interesting ideas to come in in the year to come. I won't talk extensively about the highlights in the education team, not least because you've had a very comprehensive report by Councillor Rena Thompson in that regard. There's lots of other data in here that is no doubt of interest to all of you. I'm not going to dwell on any of the other points just because I want to give you the opportunity to quiz me should you have any questions. So I will leave it there to say thank you to all departments across the council for what was generally a very successful year. Thank you.
Right, we have some questions on that report. Right, I've got Councillor Dale. I'll start with yourself. Councillor Paul.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Wearmouth, for your report. And I do notice some of the key performance indicators, and some of them, obviously, we've got a lot more work to do. What I was going to ask you, you're talking about digital, etc., was the further development of measures on page 57. And I think this is one of the things that is going to be of concern to all our residents in Northumberland moving forward to 2025. And that's the digital phone switchover, which obviously will have a massive impact on this council with connecting people, certainly in the rural areas where there's any emergencies or storm controls, etc., etc. I have actually, my husband did try this morning and he found BT were very helpful. However, we have to buy extra stuff and work in case everything goes down, which it does in the rural areas. And one of the things I did speak to one of the officers about was having a partnership with BT, County Council, other people who be interested in this subject, because it will make a difference to lots of people, people who have their wristwatch with, you know, the safeguard things, etc. So to add security, to make sure that we really have a good provision and everybody's working together and nobody's picking anybody off, I just wondered if we could sort out a partnership to ensure that everybody is having the same message across the county on the delivery of this, because it is important that when it's turned off, you know, people are concerned already, and a lot of them, to be quite honest, some of them in the rural areas aren't on computers. They don't want to use computers. It's part of an ageing population too. So I think the more we can do, the more we can work with everybody, the better. So I could propose that maybe you'd like to set up a partnership with everybody to take this forward in an equality way.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dale, Chair. We'll address that, I'm sure, through a variety of future policy conferences. I think that's something that scrutiny should be picking up as well. We need to make sure that ultimately that we push jointly with government and with the various relevant companies, so that people understand that that switch is going to happen, and it's going to happen in the not too distant future. In terms of resilience, you're quite right. We're looking at how we adapt and make sure that we've got that. And we, through Gain Share, for example, you might have seen in Cabinet reports some money coming back into the council, which we're making available for various voucher schemes. I'd like us to be looking maybe at something a little bit more innovative for really difficult to reach parts in the valleys and up in the hills. Perhaps things like Starlink, where, you know, an actual physical connection isn't necessarily is a very costly thing, but something that we can do through much more innovative approaches. So watch out for more of that in the future, and thank you very much for the question. Right.
I've got questions from a further 5 councillors. I'm just going to point out it's now 4:05. I do want to get done by 5, so I'm going to limit it to those 5 people who put those hands up. So I've got Councillors Ball, Carr, Morford, Grimshaw and Dickinson. So I'll go to Councillor Ball first.
Thanks, Chair. Empowering and resilient communities and diverse and resilient economy. When are we going to start spending the levelling up money in Ashington? Is I was promised there was going to be a consultation in autumn. We're now on the 1st of November. I have had no notification of this consultation going to happen. So this money needs to be spent by 2025, I believe. What's happening with it? Because if we're going to have an empowered and resilient community, maybe we need to start taking that community with us, because at the minute, people are disillusioned at best and furious. So if we could get a wriggle on that, would be delightful.
Thank you, Councillor Ball, for highlighting the money that we managed to attract to Ashington from the government. You'll hear more about that, no doubt, in due course from Councillor Poshai and from the Regen team. I believe it's making good progress, and I'm sure that you'll see additional cranes in Ashington, in addition, of course, to the station, which has cost us, I don't know, about £20 million to build that, and the college, which will soon be starting construction with DFE. So lots going on in Ashington for residents to look forward to.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Councillor Wearmouth for the report. I was glad to see that our broadband targets are being met, including part 2, the take-up, which is the target was 65, and it's actually quarter third is gone to 79.1. That's pretty good. But I've got an issue as well about the broadband, similar to what Councillor Dale mentioned before. Obviously, in 2025, at the end of the year, PSTN lines will cease to exist, and they'll be moving over to digital contact. Now, I have a concern that across Northumberland, there will be a small demographic of residents who don't even have internet connection. And I would like to know if there are plans to maybe identify these particular residents who I suspect are going to be trapped with no contact to the council. You might think, oh, they can use a mobile, but I'll tell you a story. There was one resident who contacted me via letter, and I said, well, do you have a mobile? And they thought a mobile was one of those things that hang above a baby's cot. So I am concerned, and even in my ward, this is obviously this concern, because I have elderly residents as well who don't have internet access. And obviously, once the PST lines cease to exist, will we identify these residents who I feel will be cut off from contacting us apart from letter? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. A bit of the same response that I gave to Councillor Dale, which is I think that there's going to be some work for the team that's dealing with broadband rollout that covers much of the same area. It's definitely something that we need to make sure that people understand. We need to find those people. Sometimes it's not as straightforward as you might think, though, so we don't even know necessarily who it is that we need to connect in terms of some of the broadband questions and the fibre questions. Usually in relatively small pockets of our communities across the county, not least because we can't get the data transferred from either the providers or the relevant government department. So it's an ongoing battle always to make sure that we're identifying all of those people and that we reach them and make sure that they're catered for as they would wish.
Councillor Morford.
Thank you, Chair. Martin and I are grateful for the report. In reading it, we've noticed that the Council's inequalities work is focusing more closely on health inequality and poverty prevention than it is on wealth inequality. In the same way that the Council publishes its own maximum to minimum pay ratio, we feel that we should be using measures like the county's maximum to minimum income ratio, its maximum to minimum land ownership ratio, and its maximum to minimum total wealth ratio to monitor our progress on tackling inequality. That's because we won't solve the problem as a whole unless we dare to look at the big picture and tell the whole story.
Thank you, Councillor Morford. So we've got a whole variety of key performance indicators. These are some of them. We're constantly reviewing those. I think ultimately there's a great job being done here in the county in terms of bringing jobs and investment, making sure that we're giving people the best start in life, as has been ably demonstrated by Councillor Renner-Thompson. There's many indicators, but let's just make sure that we give ourselves the credit as a council as a whole, and in particular to the leader here, that he set out that agenda of making sure that we did tackle inequalities and put that right at the heart of our administration and our council. Thank you.
Well done. Councillor Grimshaw.
Thank you very much, Chair. Well, it's actually a focus on improvement on 5.38 on page 58. And I would just like to, it's not a criticism, it's a wonderful comment about the communities together. I have got the greatest respect in dealing with the communities together. And I know you've got on building on impressive performance, but I think they go above and beyond impressive. They do an absolutely fantastic job. I've been dealing with them for quite a while, and they're on the ball same day, and they get out there and do it. But I would just like to hopefully ensure that they get the support they need, they're fully staffed, and that we'll fully fund them for everything else that they do, because we've got some very, very vulnerable people out there that needs these vital services. Thank you, Chair, but I would just like to thank all of the team that deals with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grimshaw. I'd like to thank the team as well, and thank everybody involved in Communities Together. It's been doing some great work during very challenging times. The key focus now is going to be moving from a time where it was dominated perhaps by the impacts of COVID and all of the insecurity and issues and disruption that were created by COVID, and then latterly the war in the Ukraine, which has compounded those problems, and make sure that we get the right focus for the future. And that's what officers and the administration will be doing. Thank you for your kind comments, sir.
Finally, Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. That poor resident that got you to help them with their crossword. Apparently it was the only one that was wrong in the whole thing. But in terms of the report itself, I'm really pleased that the leaders are having a discussion, and maybe I can have a discussion separately with you, Councillor William Mouth, about some of the KPIs. I think some of it in here is really good in terms of improvements, that there is a lot happening that you can see and feel. I think some of it is a little bit of a sweeping statement in certain areas, Councillor Wearmouth, where I personally might like to have seen a little bit more on the evidence and the data that we're using on that. And that's not really a criticism, it's just something that I would like to see. But I think for weight to the document and for credibility, some of that evidence and data in there would probably help with that. And I think just the question at the end was really around, in terms of reviewing the KPIs, the information that we're being asked to provide, and then your next report, do you envisage that they will be reviewed and implemented by the time the next report comes, I guess, is the question.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. I think that... I'll avoid the funny joke. Those KPIs are constantly being reviewed. We're keen to have feedback through scrutiny, through the chamber, through any feedback direction that you want in order to provide us. You have that ability to make that known through group leaders meetings, and I'm very happy to get any comments back from yourself or anyone else in the chamber to hone this. But one thing I would say is, let's not change them repeatedly and all of the time, because otherwise you lose the thread of what it is that you were trying to monitor and trying to compare ultimately apples with pears and so on. Okay, thank you.
Right. To the next item on the agenda, which is the report of the Deputy Leader again and Cabinet Member for Corporate Services. As I mentioned at the start of the meeting, I'm moving this item to item 12 on the agenda. It's a Treasury Management Annual Report for the financial year 22-23, and I'd like to invite Councillor Wearmouth back to present this report.
Thank you. I'm being challenged to say take it as read, but I won't do that to you. We can do at least just a few paragraphs about what's actually in this report, because it's that report that's always it's absolutely fascinating to a tiny number of people, and I almost can pick the people that will ask the questions if they so wish. The backdrop of this report, obviously, is the financial year 22 through 23. It was a time of inflationary pressures. It was a time of interest rates increasing, and so it was a really difficult time for the Treasury team, and led by Jan Willis as our excellent 151 officer, to get to grips with what was going on. But to get to grips they did. And actually, if you look at the report, borrowing is ever so slightly down. Our interest rates in terms of what we're paying in interest actually didn't change all that much, despite interest rates increasing quite considerably during the time period. They went up just 0.2% to 3.14%. And that's naturally because the council at any one time is borrowing a reasonably large amount of money to perform its day-to-day business and to satisfy its capital programme and to prop up its revenue activity and so on and so forth. But a lot of that is longer-term borrowing, and so when we do hit these little bumps in the road, they remain little bumps, and the financial health of the council remains superb. And it's also to do with the portfolio holder probably as well.
I've got a question from Councillor Grimshaw. Can anyone else indicate while we're on that question? Councillor Grimshaw.
Actually, it isn't a question. It's just a comment to say that I think Jan's done a sterling job on keeping an eye on this and the Treasury management, because it has been very difficult times and volatile. So it's an excellent report, and thank you very much for Jen and their team for compiling it. Thank you, Councillor Belmarth.
Thank you. Do we have any questions at all? I can't see any, so I'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the annual report of the Audit Committee, and I'd like to invite Councillor Towns to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. The report's obviously set out in your papers, and I trust everyone's read it. It's just a couple of things which I will keep brief. First off, just like others, I'd like to thank the officer team who work with the committee over the year to produce some really detailed and interesting reports and answer actually some really insightful questions from members of the committee as well. In particular, Jan, Neil and Kevin MacDonald as well, to be thanked there. I'd also, just on behalf of the committee, like to thank the former independent chair, Stephen Watson, who has fulfilled that independent chair role excellently, in my view, and he stepped down a few months ago. So this, obviously he's not a member of the council, so I'll be doing this report anyway, but we're looking, I believe we are trying to recruit a new independent member and a new independent chair to fulfil that role again, and I think that's with the blessing of the committee. The second thing to mention is it's touched upon in the report, is how the council's audit committee has undertaken, as part of a group audit function, audit oversight of Advanced Northumberland. They obviously have their own audit committee, but I think the two committees have worked really well together, and as part of that relationship, the independent chair, Stephen Watson, had been attending Advanced Northumberland Audit Committee meetings. Until the new independent chair is in place as vice chair of the committee, I will be doing that, just to keep that liaison between the two. And I think actually simple things like that have helped really improve relations between the council as shareholder and the board of Advanced and the audit committee of Advanced. And the final thing I would like to mention, and this is maybe just to preempt a couple of questions, is that the audit committee will be receiving a further detailed report, as indicated at the last audit committee meeting, which will wrap up all the outstanding matters relating to severance payments. That is an issue for that committee. That is a report for that committee to consider and comment on once they have all the information made available to them through that report and presented to them. So if there's any questions on that today, I won't be answering them because I think that would be premature. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Towns. I've got a question from Councillor Grimshaw.
Thank you. Actually, Councillor Towns has said, echo everything Councillor Towns has said, but especially to Stephen Watson, who has, vacated the chair independent. He was an excellent chair, and it was fraught at times, some of the meetings that were held, and he handled it absolutely superbly. So we'd just like to thank him, and also all of the team that's worked behind the scenes on the audit, because they've had challenging times as well. So, as I say, it's not a question, it's just, to echo David's sentiments about the audit committee and the officers that's embroiled in all the things that were in issues, and probably current and ongoing issues that might be ongoing. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Do I have some questions? Councillor Dale.
Can I just, it's not a question, it's just maybe David would like to answer. Sorry, the Taxpayers Alliance obviously love having their headlines, and one of them is about the sign-off of accounts of the County Council. I think what they need to know, people need to know, is the statement of accounts have been signed off. it's actually the value for money exercise that hasn't been, and we're waiting for those for, I think, 3 years. But I think people need to ensure that actually, you know, the difference between the statement of accounts and the value for money, there's two sides, and people are getting them muddled up. So that's due because of this taxpayers' allowance reporting.
Yeah, I don't think you've got anything to add, have you? Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Just a comment to say thank you to the committee for their work. I have raised with the leader some issues around committee behaviour, and it's not great for some of my members who sit on that committee to experience that. So I hope this annual report can be taken as read and the behaviour has improved from this moment onwards. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Hill for a question.
Just a quick technical question. As Councillor Towns, I presume you're temporarily chairing the meeting, and as a lawyer yourself, reading some of the newspaper reports, people have been banding around phrases like illegal, and there's a difference between illegal and unlawful. So I'm sure just remind people when they're throwing out these suggestions that they get the terminology correct.
Councillor Towns.
I haven't yet chaired the meeting in Stephen's absence because I've been involved in an accident, so I had to take some time out. But it's a good point, and I think audit, because it looks at things so forensically, the terminology that's used in the committee does need to be correct. And if there's incorrect terminology being used, then if that comes to my attention, if I'm chairing a meeting or comes to officers' attention, I'll be very happy that somebody would step in to correct. And that does happen. That does happen on a regular basis. We have members from the legal team in the meeting, as you know, and they will always step in to correct anyone if the terminology is being used is wrong or potentially misleading. And if there's things being said that maybe get into legal murky waters, shall we say. So, thank you.
Okay. We're going to move on to item 14 on this agenda. Yeah, so I'm letting lost his title for a second. Governance and Monitoring Officer leave the room. I think he has left now. So we now move to item 14 in agenda. It's a report of the Chair of the Staff and Appointments Committee and relates to a contractual change from fixed term to permanent status of the Director of Law and Corporate Governance and Monitoring Officer. And I'd like to invite Councillor Sanderson to present this report.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. The report is, as it's written, Staff and Appointments Committee met and we agreed with the recommendation that you see in front of you. This is essentially about recognising the incredibly solid work that Stephen Gerrard has put in the short time he's been with us. The fact he likes us and we like him is very important, but mostly I think it's something that we all really quite want to see, a full-time permanent monitoring officer. So for that reason, I'm very happy to put forward this recommendation with the added bonus, if you like, that it won't cost any more money. Thank you.
So you've moved that. I need a seconder for that. Can I have a seconder? I'll go Councillor Towns there. Thank you very much. I've got here to move to a vote. Are we happy to move to a vote on that? Is that we all in favour? Agreed, I think. Thank you. So I can now invite, someone could invite him back in, please.
I don't know where he is. He's probably done a run.
Thank you very much for that. We have no other items to consider. Thank you for your time. I will now close the meeting. Happy Christmas, because we've not Happy New Year. We've got that coming forward. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'll close the meeting.